Hey guys, how's it going? Srey here. Today, I want to talk about the brand new hero, Ragnaros. So, Ragnaros was teased at BlizzCon, and he was pretty hype, and the question is, does he really live up to the expectations? And the shorter answer to that is yes, he does. He is not only super fun to play, he's also really good. I think he's one of the best heroes that Blizzard has released for quite a long time. I think his design is awesome, his kit is really strong, he has a ton of different viable talents. His skin is really good, and he's just such a cool hero. The only thing I don't like about him is the fact that his skin tints are actually really lame. The individual colors look pretty stupid, but hopefully Blizzard will fix that and we'll get some new skins in the future. But regardless of that stuff, I already know right now that this video is probably gonna go over the 20 minutes that I'm aiming for, and that's because there's just so much to talk about, especially with new heroes. So he's pretty damn good in especially in quick match and hero league, but he's not that great in competitive. So obviously that competitive situation doesn't really apply to you, the average viewer, but it is important in the sense of balancing. So with the Samuro situation, Samuro is, if you don't know, basically never played ever in competitive. Even when he was released, he was barely played. Um, and this is because some heroes in the game are just really good in uncoordinated play when you're not in comms and stuff and you're coordinating with your team, and they're just really good. You can kind of feast on uncoordinated play. So like Gazlo, Nova, Split Push, Asmodan, heroes like that, where if you're not just on the ball with your team, they're gonna be able to punish you for it. So Ragnaros is kind of one of those heroes where he's really good in quick match and hero league, but not quite as good in competitive. And right now, I don't like. I think he'll be played in competitive, but I don't really think that he'll be first pick worthy, or any kind of high tier like that. I think he's going to be a kind of a lower tier pick. But in Hero League and Quick Match, I think he's one of the best heroes in the game, if not maybe the best, at least right now. So I have I played him quite a bit, but obviously he's only come out for a little bit. I didn't play him on PTR at all because I was trying to qualify for a tournament. So I haven't had as much time as I would like to get him with him, but I still have a pretty good first impression. So obviously my opinion will change in the future, and this is just kind of my view of how he's been in the last few days. So I think I have a pretty good handle on him, but obviously things are subject to change, and I'm sure he'll get changes in an upcoming patch. So let's start with his abilities. So his first ability, Q, is just Empower Sulfuras, and when you press it, you basically reset your auto attack. So what resetting your auto attack means is that you can see when you're attacking here, there's a there's a delay in between. So if you do it right after you attack, you can get a much faster next auto attack. And what it does is your next auto attack that you use does significantly more damage. It's AoE damage, and it also heals you for 20% of the damage dealt and 40% versus heroes. So this makes it obviously much better if enemies are stacking, and the damage value is actually quite high. So it does a lot of damage. It's a low cooldown, low mana cost, and it also helps with wave clear quite effectively. So this is basically your bread and butter and the ability you use to do the most damage. His W is Living Meteor, and it summons a meteor. It's a vector targeting system, so you have to click and drag and drop, and it just summons a meteor that does a little bit of damage when it drops, and then if you're stacking, if you stand in the meteor, it'll do significantly more damage. So it basically only does damage in the spot where the meteor hits, and so if you hit an enemy that runs with the meteor, it's going to do a ton of damage. So you can see that it's 658 damage per second plus a little bit of damage when it drops, and it's 1.75 seconds. So it actually does quite a bit of damage. I think about 1,000 or something. If you hit the enemy for all the hits, but that's not realistic. You're not going to be able to hit every single. It's not going to be able to do full effective damage because it ticks quite fast, and the enemy is not going to stack in it, at least if they're smart. So you won't always get full damage of this, but it's still pretty good. The range is also quite long, so if you cast it at max range, it has a pretty good range on it. It's good for interrupting things as well, interrupting caps on Cursed Hollow or preventing turn-in on Blackheart's Bay or something like that. So it has a lot of other uses as well. His E is a targeted ability, so if you can cast it on yourself or you can cast it on a minion or your hero. It can be casted on anything that's an ally, except structures. You can't cast it on structures. So what it does is, I'll cast it on myself here. After 1.25 seconds, you do AoE damage. or 1.5, sorry, and you also gain movement speed for that 1.5 seconds, 25%. So this is basically just, it can help your allies kite, so you can cast it on your Vala or your Jaina to make her quicker. You can cast it on your ETC that's engaging, so that he can do some damage and be sped up. It's good on Johanna when she's trying to condemn. And obviously you can cast it on yourself, so it's basically it's his only mobility tool. Ragnaros has nothing else for mobility, and obviously, well, in case you don't know this, you can hold Alt, and if you cast any targeted ability and you hold Alt, it'll auto cast myself. So you can see my mouse is over here, and if I hold Alt and hit E, it's gonna auto target myself. And this is something that you should definitely be getting used to playing with, especially if you're playing Ragnaros or any kind of targeting in the future. That's pretty useful for if you're a healer or anything like that. If you can just easily heal yourself without actually pointing over yourself. Especially helpful in fights when there's a lot of targets around and you don't want to have to move your mouse over yourself, or you don't want to misclick or something like that. So get used to holding Alt and then E. Okay, so his passive is basically a heroic. It's really strong, and it's a really important part of his kit. So after channeling on a fort uh, or a keep, or an enemy dead fort or keep, any dead fort or keep, or any allied fort or keep. Okay, it doesn't work on core, it doesn't work on towers or anything like that. It doesn't work on enemy fort. And if the enemy team has a Ragnaros, you can't use it while he's using this ability. So Molten Core, you channel a fort or a keep, and after you channel, you become heroic difficulty. So basically, you have unique abilities, and if you look at the range on the mini map here, the range you can cast is absolutely enormous. So you can cast new abilities. All of your abilities become unique. And when you pop out, you're going to pop out to the same spot that you started casting. So that's an important part. So imagine an enemy team is sieging here at your front gate, and they're going to break down that wall. You probably want to cast from behind so that when you pop out, you don't just die immediately. So his Q is a big sweep, and it does damage and stuns the enemy for 1 second. This is by far the strongest part of his abilities here. His W rains 3 meteors, and they each do damage, and they slow enemies by 25% for 2 seconds. And his final ability is just explosive ruin, and after a delay, it just does damage in an area. So you can cast all of your abilities. They're pretty short, cooldown 6 seconds, 2.5 seconds, 4 seconds, and their range, like I said, is absolutely enormous. So they also give vision when you cast them. So you can also press D to deactivate and get out quicker if you need to. So you can see that when I enter this, you have a health bar in the top, and this health bar can obviously be damaged by enemies or any kind of units or structures, whatever. So if they have an immortal pushing down the lane and it hits you, it's going to do damage to your health bar here. So you actually have a new health bar for the fort. So this can be very helpful if you're trying to defend. Obviously, they have to kill you before they can damage the fort. This can also be used to save your keep or something if it's being attacked by a boss, or if the enemy is sieging. So this is really, really useful when defending. And that's pretty much your primary use of it, but it also has several other uses. So you can use it if you're sieging the enemy core or something. Obviously, the keeps are very close to where the core is. So since the range is so large, you can hit, you can be effective very far away from where the fight is actually happening. Or say the enemy engages on you and you're just near a fort, you can just activate this and you'll almost always win that fight, because you cannot fight under Ragnaros's Molten Core if it's a full 5v5 team fight. He's just way too strong. And this, like I said, this Molten Swing here is really the best part of this kit, because it stuns enemies. In addition, all of his abilities do 25% more damage to minions, mercenaries, and monsters. So it helps with wave clear. You can also cast your heroic, whatever you pick at level 10. And interesting thing to note, so when we talk about its Sulfuras Smash, the range isn't that long, but you get increased range when you're channeling this. So you can see that, I'll do it one more time here. When you channel Molten Core and you get increased range, you can cast your heroic Sulfuras Smash within this range. So it also increases the range of that ability. But it's still on a normal cooldown and everything. Okay. So Molten Core has a lot of uses. You can use it to delay caps, so it's really good on Cursed Hollow to delay people from capping. It's really good on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Like pretty much any map has a fort or keep relatively close to an objective, so not only can you do a ton of damage, but you can stall really effectively, and it lasts for 18 seconds if you don't take any damage, and that's a decently long time. This is also a 100-second cooldown, but you get it from level 1, right? So normal 100-second cooldowns are obviously heroic abilities, and heroic abilities you get at level 10, which is like 7 or 8 minutes in the game around that mark. So since you're getting this from level 1, you have an additional 7 or 8 minutes that you can use this cooldown for. So instead of like a heroic ability like say Apocalypse on Diablo, it's a 100-second cooldown, but you get that level 10. You also have levels 1 to 9 to be effective with Molten Core on Ragnaros. So the fact that you get this to level 1 means that you should be using it constantly. Don't be afraid to use this ability. Um, Sometimes, a lot of the time, you'll just be more effective in a team fight if you're just there. But if the enemy is sieging, you always want to use Molten Core. Just be careful where you enter Molten Core from. Okay. There's a few other things I want to talk about. So if we look at Ragnaros' stats here, he actually has very high stats. Okay, so his auto attack damage is among the highest in the game. Although his attacks per second are slow, it's good because you can reset with Empower Sulfuras. He has really high attack damage. So the only heroes that have like higher base attack damage, obviously some heroes have higher attack damage DPS, which is damage per second, but their raw attack damage isn't nearly as high. So he's higher than Thrall. The he's higher than um, Artanis, etc. But the more important thing is like Butcher and Greymane and Worgen form are pretty much the only heroes that have higher base attack damage. So his attack damage is really high. The other interesting thing is attack range is really high as well. So 2 attack range compared to other melee heroes, Artanis is like 1.2, Thrall has 1.5, Greymane has 1.2. Um, Varian has 1.2, I think. There's a couple of heroes that do have a 2.0 attack range for melee, but it's very rare. So this makes it so that what this means basically is that the distance you can attack from. So you can see if I just right click here, that's a 2.0 attack range. So if I move a little bit closer, this is probably like 1.2, and this is like 2. So it's a little bit further, and it actually helps quite a bit. Um, so that's really nice to have as well. Uh, Other than that, he has decent health. It's not that high. The most important thing to note about Ragnaros, though, is that he has no peel for himself, and he has no defensive capabilities. So his only peel that he can use for himself is Blast Wave to try and run away a little bit faster. Obviously, his Empower Sulfuras heals you, and it can heal a ton of health in an AoE situation, but he doesn't have any defensive capabilities, so he's really weak to hard CC, hard damage. Obviously, every hero in the game is weak to burst damage and CC, right? But some heroes are more vulnerable and more prone to getting hit by it. So Ragnaros, so Vala, for example, is going to get melted by CC and burst damage, right? But she's also a ranged hero. So Ragnaros has to be in the midst of things. He has basically no ranged abilities. All of his damage comes from Empower Sulfuras and Blast Wave and auto attacks in melee form. Um, Living Meteor, like although it does nice damage, it's not going to be does basically nothing in a team fight overall. It's just going to do some nice poke damage and maybe some interrupts and things like that. Or if you have them stunned, it'll do some more damage. But you're getting most of your damage from auto attacks and Power Furious and Blast Wave. So you want to make sure that you're actually in there fighting. And when you're in there fighting, that makes you very vulnerable to CC. So Sonya, for example, or Johanna, Johanna can pop D to give herself a shield and to make herself immune to crowd control effects. She has blinds. She's really tanky. She has more health, block charges, etc. And if you compare it like Sonya, for example, Sonya isn't a tank but a bruiser. Sonya has Wrath, which basically makes her significantly reduced CC. She heals for a lot in AoE form. When she's whirlwinding, she has a lot more health. She's a lot more kind of a threat in melee form. If you compare it to Artanis, Artanis is a self-shielding and he's a lot tankier. So Ragnaros himself is actually very weak when you're walking up to people. Kerrigan is also very weak, but at least Kerrigan has like really hard CC that makes her a threat. Ragnaros isn't really that much of a threat in melee. I keep saying in melee, but just as a melee hero, he's not that much of a threat. Like he does a lot of damage and he's really strong. But he's not like it's not like oh shit, we have to make sure that when Ragnaros is close to us, we avoid a certain thing. So Ragnaros is just gonna do damage when he's close to you. That's all he's gonna do. So like I said, like Kerrigan or Sonya, they're gonna like stun. They're gonna do incredible burst damage when they're close to you. ETC will slide you or something, but Ragnaros is just gonna be there and he's just going to do damage. So he's really weak to kind of burst damage. If you have like a Murden late game or even like early game, just sitting on him, Murden's just going to give him a really hard time and things like that. So you want to make sure that, and that's the big reason why he's not as good in kind of more competitive forms, because he'll just get focused down in team fights and he doesn't really bring that much to a fight, right? So all he has is increased movement speed and he's gonna do some damage. That's literally all he brings to fights. Um, I mean, that's not all he brings to the game. He obviously has really good wave clear. He has really good camp. He can jungle very effectively, and all sorts of things. But in team fights, he doesn't really bring that much. So I just want to talk about his Q really quickly as well. The range, it does AoE damage. So let's actually see here. So if I hit this minion, okay, it actually damages the entire camp. So you can see that that minion there was damaged as well. So I'll show you again. It actually, the AoE on it is quite large. So it does a ton of AoE damage. And the AoE does not come out of Ragnaros' center. It comes out of the center of the target he hits. So what this means is that when you're attacking a wall here, so say I want to bring this tower down, right? I don't Q this tower, okay? What I'm still going to do is I'm going to Q the mid gate, and that's going to hit both towers. So that's going to get more effective damage done. So that's just like a small thing. So if I hit this fort, it's going to do AoE damage around the entire fort, not just the tiny stun. It's going to do damage around any minions around here. So say there's like I've gotten quite a few kills where, say there's a Vala poking me from behind this wall here. I'll hit the wall, and the damage is going to go all the way back to here. And I've gotten kills like that before. So just keep that in mind, that it does damage around the target's hitbox. So this tower has a hitbox, right? That's the hitbox. It's gonna do damage all the way around here. So a keep, if I hit this keep over here, it would do damage all the way around this keep. And that's so if you're hitting minions here, you want to hit the keep instead, because you'll hit everything around it. Obviously, if you hit heroes that have bigger hitboxes as well, you'll be able to hit more things. Uh, so targeting in fights, I mean, that's just a small little thing, but if you want to max min the best you can, you want to hit as many targets as you can within Pyro Sulfuras. That makes you heal more and do more. Okay, so that's basically Ragnaros' kit overall. So let's go over his talents specifically. Level 1, we have Sulfuras Hungers, Shifting Meteor, and Engulfing Flame. So Sulfuras Hungers, after you stack it 30 times, so you have to kill a minion. This doesn't count for ogres, it doesn't count for merc camps, it doesn't count for any kind of objective like on Infernal Shrines. It only counts for the minions that come down the lane, and I'm like 99% sure that also includes the catapults. So you have to stack it, so you have the last hit. So let's just turn on a wave here. So you have to hit 30 minions. I usually finish this quest at about 6 to 7, maybe 8 minutes into the game. I usually, maybe not that far, probably like around level 7 I usually finish this quest, but I'm actually actively trying to finish it. So you can see, I get the blow, and you can see the little dings there with the exclamation mark, and that actively finishes the quest. So each wave spawns 7 minions. So if you clear mid out and you clear top out, that's technically already 14, but you'll almost never actually clear both the waves fully with your Empower Sulfuras. But you can theoretically you can have this stacked within 45 seconds of the game. So this can happen very quickly for the stacking. So it's something that if you don't focus on, it'll take forever to stack, but if you're focusing on it, it'll do very quickly. So onto the actual talent. It increases the damage by up to 30, and then once you reach 30, it increases by additional 120. So you can see early in the game, let's say like level 7, which is kind of usually when I finish it.
Choose a talent.
The damage on Empower Sulfuras is 292, and you get 150 extra damage off of Sulfuras Hungers. That's a lot of damage. That's more than 50% increase in damage. Now, obviously, as the game progresses, that becomes less of 50% because it's less of this 292 grows, so it's less of a percentage. But even at level 20 here,
Choose a talent.
where it does 487, it's still 150 of 487 is still a significant portion, and 20 minutes into the game is fairly late, so you're still getting the benefits of Sulfuras Hungers throughout that entire portion. So what I'm saying is I get this talent pretty much every game. I get this talent. I do get this talent every game. That's not to say the other talents here aren't good. So Shifting Meteor, after you hit 50 heroes with Living Meteor, it increases the duration from 1.75 to 2.25. So that increases the effectiveness by like 28% around that, and it also allows you to recast the ability. So I'm not going to stack it here because it'll take too long for the video, but you can it can travel a little bit further, and you can recast it. So the target that you're trying to hit moves, you can obviously shift the living meteor to adjust your path. And it's actually quite effective. I'm going to be offering two builds here. The first is the build that I pretty much always go and you'll pretty much always want to go. And that's in general, if the builds that you go on Ragnaros depend on what team comp the enemy has, or what team comp you have rather than what team comp the enemy has. So if your team has very little front line, say that you're solo tank Rag, right? God forbid that ever happens, but say you're solo tank Rag, um, or you have like a Sonya or a Tannis or just one tank, even if you just have an ETC and the rest of your team is backline, and they have a lot of frontline potential, you don't want to go. You might want to avoid going the build I'm suggesting here, which is a lot of frontline damage. So it's a lot of engage and being in the midst of things. So the other build that you can go is focusing on Living Meteor and kind of a more poke heavy oriented build. So like I said in the beginning of the video, he actually has a lot of viable talents, but I'm going to focus on kind of one build here. So level 1, you're going to want Sulfuras Hungers, and that's going to increase your damage quite a lot, and it's pretty easy to stack. The other important thing is that it does 150 extra damage, and this extra damage works off the healing, so you'll actually heal more in fights, and that's especially at level just like level 7, level 10 or whatever. You're going to get 50% more healing from your ability as well. So it's 50% more damage, 50% more healing. I think that's a really, really strong talent to take. So Shifting Meteor can be good if they have, say, a lot of backline and they have a lot of poke and you don't have a lot of engage. So that going W build can be effective. Engulfing Flame, I actually like this ability a lot. The radius is increased. So the radius on Blast Wave in general is actually quite small. It's hard to get within range of heroes to use it all the time. And having a lower cooldown doesn't hurt anyone, especially when I actually take a lot of these E talents. So Engulfing Flame is actually quite effective, and I like it. Normally this would be a really strong talent, but I think that the amount of damage that Sulfuras Hungers offers is just too much to pass up.
Choose a
So
talent.
I go Sulfuras Hungers. At level 4, you're going to want to go Slow Burn. So Slow Burn slows enemies hit by Blast Wave by 40% for 2 seconds. That's a big slow. That's a very significant slow, and it lasts for. It's not a 40% slow decaying over 2 seconds. It's a flat 40% slow that lasts for a full 2 seconds, and it's AOE. And remember, you don't have to cast this on yourself. You can cast it on your tank or anyone that's just in the middle of the fight, and it's going to slow the entire team by 40%. So incredibly effective talent for level 4. I always get this talent. That's not to say the other options here are bad. It's just that slow burn is so strong. So catching fire is going to give you 30 health per second regen, and after you get 15 regeneration globes, you can also activate it to reduce the damage you take by 25% for 3 seconds. So that's decent, right? Especially for level 4. But slow burn is just so effective, especially with the way that I play Ragnaros. Fire Ward gives you spell block charges after Living Meteor hits a target. So you can see that when I cast Living Meteor here, it hits multiple times, right? So there it was just 3 times, and it was just a couple seconds. So you're gonna hit multiple procs off this, and if this is in the middle of a fight, you're instantly gonna get the block charges out of this. So the interesting thing here is that if you do go, well, not even if you do go this talent and you have increased duration, this is gonna give you basically it's gonna give you spell shield for 1.75 seconds. Because it's gonna tick basically every time it hits, and you're gonna get. So if these spell block charges are being used in a fight, they're gonna instantly refresh with Living Meteor. So if you're going a poke build, and they have a lot of spell power, say they have like I don't know KT or Jaina, or they have Chromie, or they have a Nova or something, and they have a lot of those backline heroes, then Fire Ward with Shifting Meteor is quite good. At level 7, I always go Superheated. So I used to pretty much only go Molten Power. But I found that with Superheated, it's just too good to kind of pass up. So it does, at level 20, the base damage is 228, and it basically gives you an extra 228 damage. And as soon as you get this talent, you can instantly clear mini waves. So one of the strongest parts of Ragnaros is the fact that he's such good wave clear. So if we look at, let me actually select the talent. So E, and you basically clear the entire wave instantly. So this gives you insane wave clear and also gives you more damage in fights. So Molten Power increases the damage up to 75%. Now this you're almost never going to get 75% damage increase, like literally almost never. I think I've done it maybe one time, but you'll always get like 30% pretty much in team fights. You always get like 30 to 45%, and that's still a pretty big increase in damage. I mean, Living Meteor does do quite a lot of damage, especially if you're going the shifting meteor style poke build, and you're gonna get a lot of damage out of Molten Power. But most of the time, like if you can go into fights, you're much better going off this build. You're much better going off just diving the enemies and going straight into the middle of the fight because you're gonna get way more effectiveness. So Molten Power is if you need to poke because you just can't get in the middle of the fight because you'll get poked too hard. Hand of Ragnaros is just too situational. So if you hit at least two enemy heroes, it reduces the mana, it restores 10 mana and reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds, which is 50% because the cooldown is 4 seconds. So you're just not going to get the value of this too much in fights. Um, a lot of times you just won't get any value of this because you'll be on a target that no one else is around. Sometimes, of course, you'll just be able to wombo this really hard. You'll hit, you'll get the cooldown reduction like 3 or 4 times in the fight, and it'll just make you insanely powerful and win the fight. But most of the time, you're not going to get the benefit of this, and Superheat is just going to be better. So level 10 is when things start to get interesting, and is so Lava Wave is pretty much the reason that Ragnaros is considered OP. Okay, so in quick match in Hero League, this talent makes you disgusting, and this is because it sends a lava wave down any lane that you want to choose. You just click a lane on the map, and it's going to send a wave down that lane. And not only does it do a ton of damage, but it clears out the wave and basically nullifies a lot of objectives. And it nullifies. So if you get aced, enemy team pushes down, you can just activate lava wave, and you instantly clear the wave, and you make their push and their ace pretty much non-effective. It's really powerful, like, also against heroes like Asmodan, like Gazlo, like Abathur, like heroes that split push that are really annoying to deal with in quick match, that your team just never responds to. You can just use this ability, and their push is basically completely nullified. So let's look at the ability here really quickly. So I activate it, and it comes down instantly from the lane, and you can see this on the map. The enemy can see it as well, but even though they see it, they often don't react to it, and I think this is just because people are still new to Ragnaros. Uh, but I expect people to react better to this in the future and not be constantly getting hit by this. However, there is one thing. So let's say the enemy team is pushing. Let's say this is our core here, right? And I activate Lava Wave, and let's say that they're sieging this core here. Activate Lava Wave. It instantly comes out. There's no response time for it. So if they're right in front of this keep here, they're gonna basically get completely hit. And there's almost no way to avoid it. Even if like in competitive level, like there's no way to avoid it because it comes so quickly. You just have to expect that he's gonna use it and kind of dodge it. The other thing to note is you can see that the path that it takes here, it's always a set path, and you might have to learn the path that it takes on some maps. So on Cursed Hollow, it can go in kind of some wonky formations. It might go around the fort in a way that you might not expect. So there's some safe places that you can hide that you might not know of. If you're playing against Ragnaros, that you might need to take time to learn. So now I
Choose a
don't.
talent.
When I began thinking about this video and what I was going to recommend to people, I actually like Sulfuras Smash more. So let's look at Sulfuras Smash here. So in a targeted vector, you just target, and this is basically the entire heroic, and that's the whole thing. So it stuns them if you hit in the center here, and around it it'll slow, and it also does significantly increased damage. So you can see that it does 434 damage on the outer area and 1300 damage on the inner area. So you can see the inner area, you basically have to hit the inner area for it to be effective. But the range is quite long, and the cast time isn't very long. It's just 0.75 seconds. It's not actually cast time, it's just a delay. So if you hit the target, they're also stunned by 0.5 seconds. And you can basically one-shot people with this. Now, it's a 60-second cooldown. It's quite long. So when I was originally thinking about it, I actually prefer taking Sulfur Smash in most of my games. But I So at the end of this video, we're going to look at all the statistics for Ragnaros. I don't think in good heart I can recommend taking Sulfuras Smash just because Lava Wave does have such a ridiculously high cooldown or high win rate. It's much higher than Sulfuras Smash, and I just think that the average player is going to get way more effectiveness out of Lava Wave. It's Lava Wave makes up for so many mistakes that your team can make. So they get wiped, you can Lava Wave. If they forget to clear a wave, you can just Lava Wave it. If the enemy team is backdooring, you can just Lava Wave it. If you're about to lose the game, you can just Lava Wave and wipe their whole team. Like, it has so many uses that the average player is going to get so much more use out of than Sulfuras Smash. Like, Sulfuras Smash, you might just like activate it and you'll just miss it and it does nothing and it's on a 16-second cooldown. Lava Wave, you're always going to get effectiveness out of it because at the very least, it's going to clear the wave. At the most, it's going to kill the enemy team and nullify their objective or their push or something. So I don't think that I can in good conscience not recommend you go Lava Wave. So I would say that you should go Lava Wave. And at the end of this video, I'm going to talk more about Lava Wave and Ragnaros in general and his viability and what Blizzard should do in the future. At level 13, you have Cauterized Wounds, Tempered Flame, and Resilient Flame. So Resilient Flame is really, really strong. 50% damage reduction for 3 seconds is insanely strong. So if the enemy team has has a lot of CC, if they have, remember the Johanna's W Condemn also is a 0.25 second stun. That's enough to activate it. So if they have like a Johanna, if they have an ETC, if they have a Murden, Kerrigan, Tyrande, if they have any kind of hard CC, if they have like, I wouldn't take it if they have like one source, but if they have multiple sources of stuns, and not, it can't be root. It has to be it has to be stun. So Dahaka's tongue, remember, it counts as stun. But if they have any kind of stuns, you're basically immune to them in fights, and you just almost impossible to die. So Resilient Flame, absolutely 100% take it if they have a lot of stuns on their team. If they have a Skullcracker Murden, well, he can, if he takes Skullcracker against you, and you have this talent, you're literally immune to damage if he attacks you. You can't die, pretty much. It's just in the situations that it's good, it's one of the most broken talents in the game. Especially on a hero like Ragnaros, who's always in the middle of the fight. But most of the time, you're going to take Cauterized Wounds. So Cauterized Wounds empower Sulfuras to heal for an additional 60% of the damage dealt to heroes over 2 seconds. So you can see that Empower Sulfuras, right now it heals you for 40% of the damage done, right? 20% of the damage dealt, double versus heroes, that's 40%. So if you take this talent, you heal for 100% of the damage that Empower Sulfuras does. 100% against heroes. That is really strong. It increases the healing from 40% to 100%. And that's just crazy to me. So if you're not going, if the niche situation of Resilient Flame doesn't make itself apparent, always take Cauterized Wounds. Tempered Flame gives you a 100% shield for the damage done by Blast Wave. Obviously, if you have Superheated, you're going to get another 100%. It's going to increase the effectiveness, basically, of Tempered Flame. But you're still going to, I mean, the damage on Superheated, or on Blast Wave, sorry, isn't that crazy. I think that you get way more effectiveness out of Cauterized Wounds most of the time. And note that this isn't, and the reason I think you get more effectiveness is because Tempered Flame, it says when the Blast Wave damages the enemy hero. Okay, so it only procs on one hero. So it's only going to proc one time. So this damage bonus you get, so 228 times 2, it's going to be close, it's going to be quite a lot of damage. That only procs one time. Okay, so if you hit like multiple enemy heroes with this, it's not going to give you a shield equal to all the damage you dealt to all the heroes. It's only a shield equal to the damage that you do to one of the heroes. Cauterized Wounds is heroes, so it's AoE. So if you hit multiple heroes, you're going to heal from all those heroes. So I think that just because of that, Cauterized Wounds is just way, way more effective. Now, at level 16, I used to think that when I started out, I thought Giant Scorcher was just always the talent to go. But since I started taking Superheated at level 7, I've actually liked Blast Echo a lot more. So I like the fact that you can just dive into the enemy team and you can cast on yourself or an ally, and you just, not only does it do more damage, right? So it's going to do, so now with Superheated and Blast Wave does 4 times as much damage overall. And you just get so much effectiveness out of Blast Wave that I don't think it's viable to go Giant Scorcher. So it does 9% of the enemy hero's maximum health over 3 seconds. It doesn't heal you. So even if you're hitting an Arthas, okay? Even if you hit an Arthas, you're going to get, I think, it's going to do more damage. Giant Scorcher will do more damage than Blast Echo has the potential to do more damage. But Blast Echo, just remember that it gives you all this utility. So it's going to give you an extra 1.5 seconds of movement speed if you cast it on yourself at least. It's going to give you And it's going to slow all the enemies by another 40% for 2 seconds, right? So you get the extra movement speed and slow from Blast Echo, and that's just so strong when you're diving into the enemy team. Um, I I just think that it's definitely worth going Blast Echo. Meteor Bomb just doesn't do a lot of damage. This is 482, so you can see, I mean, it's a decent damage increase, but being able to actually hit this, I mean, if you want to be able to hit Meteor Bomb reliably, you 100% need Shifting Meteor to adjust the course. Otherwise, you're just never going to hit this ability. So I think that uh, if you're going the poke build that I suggested earlier, right? So if you go Shifting Meteor, maybe if you want Fire Ward, you don't actually need that, but Molten Power, and then you go uh, Meteor Bomb at level 16, then it's pretty much, it's a pretty good option if you're committing to that anyway. And that's more of a poke build. So like I said, so with Blast Wave and with this build, you're diving into the enemy team, and you need to make sure that you can dive into the enemy team. So you need to have the allies and the support of your team to be able to dive in. Otherwise, you're just going to get blown up and CC'd when you go into fights. So you can see that, whoops, I cast it on myself, and it explodes again right after. All right, so level 20. Let's say that you have Sulfuras Smash. Flames of Sulfuron is just bad. It doesn't increase the damage at all. It just gives you, I mean, you should be, if you're using Sulfuras Smash, you need to be hitting the targets in the center for it to be effective. So you get an extra 0.5 second stun. That's total trash for level 20. Total complete trash. So if you have Lava Wave, which is what I recommend, you're going to get an additional charge and the cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. That's really, really strong. You're pretty much, if you go Lava Surge, you're probably always going to go with this talent. But this is your default talent if you're going to go Lava Surge. Or sorry, if you're going Lava Wave. Let's just leave it at that. So Heroic Difficulty and Submerge are the two other options here. So Heroic Difficulty I actually thought would be bad when I first looked at it. So it increases the health and damage by 50% and reduces the cooldown by 50 seconds. But I didn't realize that it did increase the damage by 50%. I thought it was only a health increase and a cooldown reduced by 50 seconds. So when you use Molten Core, so since you have 50% more health, that means you last 50% longer, assuming you take no damage. And the 50% damage increase is actually insane. So the 50% damage increase with the 50% extra duration, and it's a 50% reduced cooldown because the cooldown is 100 seconds, so you get 50% off of that. Just makes it so that it lasts about, I think, about like 28 seconds if you take no damage. And it has a 50-second cooldown. So the uptime on this ability is insanely long. It's really, really high. And if you're trying to contest an objective, you're only going to have like 12 seconds of downtime or something with this ability. And it basically makes it impossible. If you're losing the game, I 100% recommend that you go Heroic Difficulty. It's seriously insanely strong. And if you're going and this 50% damage increase also works in your heroic. So if you have Sulfuras Smash or you have Lava Wave, you're basically going to one-hit people. Like it's actually crazy. I really, really suggest that you try this out and see how it goes for you, because I think this is extremely strong, especially if you're losing the game. If you're winning the game, I probably wouldn't take this, but if you're losing, this has some extremely strong comeback potential. The other option here is Submerge, and this is also a really, really strong talent. So it's basically Ice Block. I mean, it's literally Ice Block, except it heals you as well. It has a 30-second longer cooldown. Actually, I don't know if heroes even have... Yeah, Ice Block is still in the game. So yeah, the cooldown is increased from 60 to 90, and it also heals you while you're in stasis. So this is really strong. It's in competitive, it's probably the best option here. Maybe besides heroic difficulty if you're losing. But yeah, Submerge is really, really powerful, and it's definitely an option if you're trying to go in fights and you're getting blown up. But in general, I think Lava Surge, because Lava Wave is just so strong, I think that that's the option you're going to want to go. So now that we're done talking about all the specific abilities, actually one more thing, I just want to show you guys. So let's talk about the minions here. We have Vala selected. I just want to show you that. So I did say that I like Sulfuras Smash, and I just want to show you why. So we'll just take Submerge or something here. Okay, so let's say that we engage on them, right? You can literally one-hit people. It's actually insane. The amount of damage that Sulfuras Smash does is crazy high, and it lets you engage on people, so that's why I like it. I think this is really, really underrated. Well, maybe it's not even underrated. It's just people are Lava Wave is so good that like I don't think that you would not take it if especially if you're more inexperienced on Ragnaros. But this ability 100% has viability to it. I don't think it's trash. When I first tried it, I didn't like it at all. But you can see that it does so much damage. Like that's insane. Um, so yeah, I recommend that you give it a try. But most of the time you're gonna be better off taking Lava Wave, especially if you're more inexperienced. Okay, so now we talked about all of the abilities for Ragnaros. I just want to talk about a few other things. So I want to talk about I went to Blizzcon and I played Ragnaros at Blizzcon, and I also looked at the Hotslogs statistics for Ragnaros in general and what I think about his long-term viability and things like that. Okay, so Ragnaros at Blizzcon, when I played him there, he was absolutely crazy. He was stronger than he was now by a large margin, and now I don't think he was actually stronger than a large margin. I think a big portion of that was the fact that you're playing at BlizzCon, you're playing with people who have probably never played. Some of the people have never played the game before. There's no matchmaking. You just queue randomly with people, so the games are really hit or miss. So you could have a really effective game, or you could have a game where you're not quite as effective. But regarding ignoring that fact, he was still a lot stronger at BlizzCon. So I looked at the numbers, and there's a few reasons why this was true. So at BlizzCon, Living Meteor lasted for a full 2 seconds, and this level 1 talent here, Shifting Meteor, increased the duration by 30%. So you could increase the duration to like 2.6 basically in total. So 2.6 seconds from 1.75, and the damage on this ability was way higher. It was significantly higher, and it did a lot. It did a lot more damage. So Living Meteor was a lot stronger at BlizzCon. I think in Power Sulfuras is a little bit weaker. I think they buffed that. And the other thing was that Lava Wave did like 60% more damage versus non-heroes, so against like minions and versus mercenary camps and whatever, and um, it still did more damage versus heroes as well. And Sulfuras Smash got a huge buff. It did significantly less damage at BlizzCon, and now it does a lot more damage. You can literally one-hit people with it. And the other options here, Submerge. The number one thing I think why he was better at BlizzCon was that Submerge is a level 13 talent. So instead of Resilient Flame, Submerge was here, and that was having Submerge in his kit at level 13 would have just made him like disgustingly strong, like so good. And he still had these options at level 20 as well. So those are the biggest changes. There's also some smaller changes, but I'm sure you guys don't want to hear about that. Okay, so now I want to talk about statistics. So I have a couple of things I want to look at. So first one is this. Okay, so this is just quick match for Ragnaros in all leagues. Okay, so this isn't sorted at all. This is just super standard. So you can see that his win rate is really high, right? 71% in quick match. Now, the important thing I want to talk about, the really important thing, I might even make a separate Reddit post or something about this, is that look at his win rate compared to these two abilities. 71, like basically 72% compared to 71%. That is such a difference in level 10 heroics. And Sulfuras Smash is not bad. It's really good. Okay? It's really good. If Lava Wave wasn't here, Ragnaros would still be a strong hero. But with Lava Wave, it's just the reason his win rate is so high is because of Lava Wave. So Ragnaros. So let's before we talk about more about Lava Wave, you can see that his win rates are all pretty high, and most of the abilities that I suggested are relatively at the top of the win rate. But I came to that conclusion on my own. So let's sort by Hero League. So Hero League, you can see his win rates are significantly reduced. So the more coordination in the game, and the more you can draft against him, the lower his win rates are. So let's then look at Team League, which is even more coordination. You can see his win rates again drop, right? So we had 71% before, 72%, now it's 64.6%. So his win rates drop significantly. The other thing I want to look at is, well, first let's look at different leagues. You can see his, well, keep in mind, it's actually kind of false to look at these statistics because Heroes and Masters and Diamond all have really high win rates because you're gonna have a higher win rate in Masters Diamond because you're beating people who are lower win rate. That's just kind of how it works. So you can see that at low levels, these statistics actually don't mean anything. I shouldn't have showed this because it's in relative to the win rates that the other heroes have. Okay, so let's look at the map statistics. Okay, so Ragnaros, really high win rate, right, for Hero League that I'm looking at, right? So let's look at what map do you think he'd be really good at? He's probably really good at maps where wave clear is really important. So think of maps where lava wave would be really good. It'd be really good on maps where you push as 5 and there's a lot of wave clear in those kind of situations. So Toon Spider Queen is definitely that kind of map, and you can see that his win rate is insanely high compared to other heroes in Hero League in Toon Spider Queen. Like disgustingly high for a hero. Now let's look at a map where Lava Wave probably isn't as good um, because split pushing and things like that aren't as good. Okay, so what's a map like that? Well, probably Towers of Doom. So where's Ragnaros? He's not even at the top anymore. Wait, he's way down here. So basically, my point is Ragnaros is only good, only overpowered because of Lava Wave. That's why, in good conscience, I can't recommend that you don't take it, even if I like Sulfuras Smash Shredder, because at the end of the day, Um, just I don't know if it's the community in general. I don't know if it's just people are new to Ragnaros still, but people don't know how to deal with Lava Wave, and it's not disgustingly good. It's not even viable enough to pick him in competitive, but for whatever reason, which I'm sure I could go on more about at a later time, it's really really effective versus uncoordinated teams, and it's just on Towers of Doom on a map where you don't push as 5, you don't need to split push, where Lava Wave doesn't get effectiveness. He's not that strong. He's not like he's good. He's really solid, and I would still pick him on Towers of Doom, but he's not overwhelmingly broken. So the only thing that I would like to see Blizzard change in the future, I would have absolutely no problem if they totally gutted Lava Wave because I don't think there's anything else wrong with his kit. I think he's a good hero, and I think that he's strong, and I don't want to see him get nerfed into the ground where he's literally never played ever in competitive, and I never get to see him, just for the sake of him being viable at quick match level. So I don't want to see his rest of his kit get nerfed just because Lava Wave is so strong. If they tone down Lava Wave, I don't know if they increase the cooldown or decrease the damage or something like that. It'll completely fix all the problems. Quite sure of that, or most of them. But like I said, I'm not. I still have quite a lot to do with um, Ragnaros in the future, and I still have a lot of testing to do and a lot more gameplay to do. So that's what I want to talk about today. This is by far the longest video. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know how to make it any shorter. There's a lot I wanted to talk about, and let me know what you think. Obviously, I don't expect people to watch this whole video, but if you did, thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.